So joining us on Zoom is Anti-Corruption Crusader, Lanre Suraj. Lanre, it's good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Great. All right, we have my co-hosts here. Certainly, we'll be looking at all of these together.
Right, thank you.
Yes, Suraj, my question to you is that given the prevalence of the allegation of monetization of the presidential ticketing, as I might put it, would you agree that Atiku just won a corruptible prize?
Well, I think I would want to say that many of our presidential candidates and even eventual presidents have risen to the office, climbing the ladder of what you just described as the corrupt presidential tickets. Start from 1999, as at that time it wasn't really so blatant. From 2003 up until 2022, it has been the tradition. Unfortunately for us and with the system, it has been such what we see, what we've heard, what we know, and we pretended as if it's not happening. The same thing has happened with, unfortunately, our law enforcement agencies as well, who would pretend as if this is just not happening. We look the other way. We want to make it the norm. And now you're seeing a situation where it is reported that an individual delegate is paid about $35,000 by one aspirant. And you want to wonder what is really happening to us. What kind of country are we building? How do we expect the country to change? So if not of all the political parties, majority of the political parties, especially the ruling, the major leading political parties, have conducted their primaries. The same thing with the APC that also did its primaries in the governorship, the House of Reps and the Senate and the House of Assembly. The same thing with PDP. You saw what happened with Shehu Sani, with the popularity in quotes, where he only got 2 votes. You can see with the whole cry in the Southeast, and that is the most disappointing aspect, with the whole cry in the Southeast for marginalization and also rotation of the presidency. Not even half of the delegates from the Southeast could afford to vote for Pius Anyim, who is from the Southeast. Peter Obi saw the trend and they had to move away. So it is not about the actually interest of any section or religion or tribe by many of the delegates and even our voters to say that they want to redress the injustice that is perpetrated within the system of our electoral or democratization, but it's about the personal benefits.
So what do you also, make of sentiments out there when you gauge the reactions of Atiku Abubakar's emergence as the PDP flag bearer? Some didn't even get any vote at all, and the assumption out there for outsiders say, okay, perhaps maybe they didn't, they had no money to offer to the delegates, seeing as how high the stakes were before Saturday. So what do you make of that, and where it leaves us as a nation?
No, I think, if you understand, some of the things were coming out almost like, memes on the social media. Some of them were just like snippets of just some kind of jokes, to the extent that some aspirants were requesting for the return of their money. It's an obscene, situation. It is immoral situation. It is a conscienceless situation of electing delegates for political parties. We didn't do 2 major political parties in Nigeria. It's horrible that even those ones that got 0 number of votes were actually also reported to have paid some bribes, but they were actually outspent by the ones with the higher figure. And these delegates some of them will succeed in getting away with getting money from almost every of the delegates. Some of them will collect from the highest bidder and then return the less paying aspirants. So when you see them scoring zero, for some of them, they actually paid. The ones that could possibly not pay were the ones that were pulled out. I'm seeing the trend of situation around them. But for the other ones, they just also paid. They were outpaid. I mean, there was a report that the son of the former vice president, Namadi Sambo, actually paid in Kaduna. And then when he lost and he couldn't got the a number of people that he paid to, he requested for the refund of his money. So you can understand where some of those situations are imagined from. It is really a very sad situation that we can't continue. We can't sustain it.
Oh, well, Lanre, you mentioned how aspirants were outspending each other. You know, there were the issue of some monies went out first from some aspirants, and then some other aspirants topped it up, and then when others heard how others have topped it up, they came back again to top it up and double it or even triple it. There were cases like that from what we heard, testimonies from delegates here and there. But let's draw attention to INEC, that is the regulator of all elections in Nigeria. What role does INEC have to play in setting the stage for what it should look like, and how much should not go where, as the case may be?
Yeah, I think INEC really has failed in that regard. You know, INEC seems to, and there are quite a number of areas that INEC has failed our electoral process and also the law and also the country. First, you would understand, and you can also go from history and also from the record. INEC was also expected to have collaborated and worked with the law enforcement agencies beyond his own capacity to verify some of the credentials submitted by many of the candidates. These INEC woefully failed to do in all ramifications, which encourages quite a number of forgery of INYC certificates, of WAEC results, as basic as WAEC results. The same thing going for the graduate and postgraduate certificates that are presented by candidates and political parties. INEC was also expected to monitor the political financing of the political parties and the political process and the candidates, such that the law made clear provision for INEC to request from the political parties to submit, financial reports to them after some of the electoral processes, and also at the end of specific period of time. This INEC does not enforce in strict compliance of the political parties submit the reports, and at the same time to also ensure that they investigate if those reports are genuine or otherwise. There's a limit to what on each candidate can expend on an election or electoral process. These are basic laws, but INEC seems to have just concerned itself with just conducting the election, irrespective of the character of person that is flying the flag of the political parties, and at the same time, irrespective of how much it costs for many of the candidates and the political parties to assume office. It is expected that the INEC would have also intervened at that point of when the political parties were fixing this outrageous cost of nomination form. I mean, how do we want to justify the financial prudency of a country that is dealing with economic recession, that is dealing with inflation, that is dealing with this falling value of naira, for the ruling party to be charging 100 million naira for presidential election, when in the real sense, the total salary for the president in the 4 years that is expected to occupy the office would not even meet the value of the 100 million that you are charging for just the nomination form. And that you can imagine what is expected to be expended for the process of becoming the candidate and then also ultimately winning the election. So I think the failure of INEC in this regard is too ominous and it's just too blatant.
Is it not really funny that some politicians are the one complaining about monetization? Is it not hypocrisy? I mean, there was one politician who expected to be one of the statutory delegates, and when the president failed to sign the Electoral Act to bring them into the fray or into the cooking pot, they decided the guy said he was going to pour curse on Buhari for not bringing him there. So I mean, Obi said he was going out because of monetization. Ayatollah said it was monetization. Is it complain about monetization or complain about these people outspent me? It's a corruption act, beating corruption act. Is it not what is going on? That they are just deceiving themselves and trying to tell us, oh, I am clean, I'm a clean man here. These are the people who are corrupt because I can't fight.
No, you see, that we understand how our politicians really play the game. And this is really interesting for us. One of the things that you would actually want to also appreciate the failure of Buhari to sign the amended, Electoral Act is that it has made it has made crying babies out of many of the politicians. Quite a number of them that have also prepared their bank accounts for the receipts of this also delegate bonus were actually skimmed out of the process because they couldn't just become the statutory delegate. And that has actually increased the opportunity for these other delegates to make more money, than they would have made if the amended Electoral Act had been signed, and then the statutory delegates would have joined the other delegates to the primaries. But the cry of the politician is never in the interest of the public or the process. It has always been out of the sheer fact that they are losing out in their usual game or in their usual territory. So what you have with those ones that are saying, oh, this is actually obscene, it is not because they want to condemn the situation. It is not that they feel bad for the system. It is just the fact that they can't compete within that turf anymore. I can assure you. I mean, quite a number of all of them, from the moment they started preparing for, obtaining their form and preparing for the contest, they knew and they must have prepared to pay, the delegates' fee. It is part of their calculation. But now, with the level that some of the front runners in the contest have taken the stake, it became very difficult for them, for those who don't have the open vault of the states to actually deploy for this purpose. The ones that does not have, companies that are managing lucrative businesses of government, or that have ingrained their private companies to also supplant the source of funds that should have been going to government. It will be difficult for you to contest, at the level at which we are now. And that is where you see quite a number of the crying babies coming out of the aspirants. And for quite a number of them, it is obvious because the level of compliance for the delegates has also been raised to the extent that you must be able to show where you voted for. So the payers are not joking with just giving money. So they have means of tracking the compliance of those who collected money from them. And so for that reason, they couldn't just take with the process of saying, okay, don't worry, we would see people who would go and vote according to their conscience, or the ones that would still vote based on the least paying aspirants for them to have some measure of support at the primaries.
Right. So while we are talking or proffering possible solutions, and that is upon the assumption that Nigeria is ready for restructuring in this regard. Saturday as well, AFCC officials were also seen on the PDP grounds just before the primary election took place. Made some wonder what AFCC is up to, though it's been talking tough on its stance on this monetization of our politics. What do you make out of that?
Yeah, I think it would be a very great thing to happen, and that you would appreciate when the EFCC started it in 2019 during the general election, and it was able to apprehend some candidates, some political parties that were actually openly displaying and also sharing money and moving finances or cash, across the streets and in vehicles to actually bribe electorate. This should actually be a signal for what would have been a better preparation towards this process. And the whole cry of what the monetization of delegates, it's been just on the street. You can easily just pick it up from any part of the street, wherever you are in Nigeria. Should have been about more of intelligence than the physical appearance. Yes, physical appearance can be like a surprise, beautiful idea to actually surprise quite a number of them who would be there. But I can assure you that the monies are not really usually shared at the venue of the primaries. This is usually done at the hotels of the delegates. The delegates are usually camped in designated hotel of the different aspirants. So these should have been locations where the EFCC should have been. These have been the houses of some of the front supervisors, coordinators of some of these delegates. Should have been the locations for the intelligence, and this should not just be about the EFCC alone. This should also be with the EFCC, the DSS, and the police. And for the other fact is the reality that the DSS officers are also aides to many of these aspirants. So they have information on the movement of, the Ghana must go, who also goes in and out with whatever. But we can't afford to do the open display. Good APC's primaries, presidential primaries would come up in a couple of days. So DSS should go beyond just visiting, the venue of the election. Should find means of gathering intelligence of the locations and hotels where you have, the delegates, camped, and the same thing of where individuals who are responsible for sharing of the money can also be apprehended. But this must happen with APC for the integrity and credibility of the EFCC and not to be compromised.
All right, when it comes to the issue of the aesthetics of it, or let's showmanship, it is good to see EFCC at the grounds or a convention ground to create the feeling of, okay, we're concerned about monies going up and down, but it's public knowledge. How much money is each of the contestants or aspirants, spent and outspent each other is public knowledge. There are videos all over the place for those even earlier elections who had to request for refund from delegates when they didn't win. So we expect that EFCC should have been, if they want to really make the arrest and want to really do the needful, they know what to do and they know where to start. Like you mentioned, it is not at the convention ground that monies are being shared. All of these things are done overnight in their hotels and all of that. EFCC certainly will not say they didn't know about this. So it draws our attention to the issue of, does the EFCC really have the will to do that, or they have the capacity to do that, or it was just the issue of, okay, let's just create just a feeling of, okay, we're here to work and so on?
Yeah, so there are quite a number of issues here. To be fair to EFCC, it will require more than the current capacity of the EFCC to really deal with this with across 70 774 local governments, 36 states, and the federal capital territory. It will require more than the current capacity of both the intelligence and physical activities. And that was why I also mentioned earlier the inclusion and involvement of the DSS. The ICPC is also supposed to be part of this. This should have been a joint, effort of the law enforcement agencies and anti-corruption agencies, and that is part of where I said INEC also failed in that is, statutory responsibility of rallying the law enforcement agencies around ensuring that the finances of many of these aspirants. It's a sufficient ground for even some of them to be disqualified if INEC is really serious about purifying our electoral process and also system. There's also the challenge of the average Nigerian politician. We try to underestimate our Nigerian politicians. The level of their propensity for criminality is beyond what you can actually toy with. And when you're talking about, you can see how the value of the naira fell, drastically between the last 3 weeks and now. It is because they have moved from running through and using the naira because of their intention to do whatever it takes to secure the tickets to dollar. So that has really increased the demand for dollar. And then the naira had to, start running like the cheetah to actually catch up with the dollar. The other challenge and problem, and that is where I think EFCC can also reduce the physical activities, but also work in terms of intelligence and also the software system. The banks. Our banks are more criminal than even the politicians. They serve as the worst form of conduit and enablers for many of the financial malfeasances that are committed in this country. And for that reason, you would be shocked that these banks would run with bullion vans and also even open dedicated branches where some of the prominent aspirants can move their money around in many of the system. The other point is, unfortunately, our central bank. Our central bank has been so totally compromised and debased by the current governor, who, rather than focusing on the financial system, is already delving into politics, which has never happened before in the history of just this country or any other country. So how do you want to have a prudent financial system?
All right, so what we have seen is the financial constipation of Nigerian delegates. They have been constipated at various levels, and that's because there were so many few of them. So they could get a lot of money coming in. So what should have gone to 100 persons will go to only one person, and we want to know we don't even know how they are going to cure themselves of that constipation. That brings me to the question of open primaries. Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila was a very strong voice calling for open primaries, that this idea of delegate system, indirect primaries is too fraught with corruption. But if you say it is open primaries, you really have a lot of people to spend money on if you really want to win by spending money. But it might not be really foolproof. There are all kinds of inducements in open primaries. But don't you think that is a better way to go in trying to determine who the flag bearer is? I mean, it's a better way to get to the grassroots, to get a sense of who is popular within the party.
Well, I don't really agree. My position has always been very strongly that our issues are not the system adopted or the laws that we have that would be claimed to be insufficient. Our problem has always been and will continue to be our operators. Change from that delegate system to open system tomorrow. I can assure you within the period of the next 2-3 episodes or operations, it will get compromised, provided you still have this same operators that are operating these ones, that has been this heavily compromised. So if we don't have the change in orientation, the change in mindset, if we don't have laws and mechanisms that are effective in monitoring the operations and also correcting it and even imposing sanctions on violators, there's no amount of change or new system that would be introduced. We will still come back to this zero level where we would just be so helpless, and we will have new concoctions, new ideas coming up in terms of the operation. What really needs to change, it is the mentality of our operators, the characters of the people that are occupying these offices, and even the operators. So we can't pretend that INEC is just hopeless or is not just effective. It has almost also leveled the level of compromise in INEC. So the operators, even in INEC, that are INEC officials, you've seen how many of them convicted for compromising also their duties and also oath of office. So this will become a distraction, and then people will start believing that, oh, it is the system that we operate that is imperfect, but the need for us to move to the next one. So we would have made an excuse for some of the crimes that are committed under this one. But the law is the law. If this current delegate system is compromised or it's bastardized, we need to hold accountable those who are responsible for that. Let us hold them accountable. Let them get punished and sanctioned for violating the laws and the rules. And then let's see how many of them would be left. But if we still allow them to get away with it and allow them to give us the sense that it is the imperfection of the system that is allowing for this, then we start trying to move to the next one, we would really never get it right. And by the time we move to the open ballot system, we will see them also coming up. I mean, because it's about their desperation for power. So there's nothing that you bring that they will not find a way of compromising it.
All right, Lanre Suraj, thank you so much for your insight into these issues. We look forward to how things will be better, especially in the next big convention that will be coming up, the APC convention in matter of days. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.